You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 291. From Maximalist to Minimalist, choosing to run a cozy small business with Lydia Lee. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to bringing this episode to you because you get to meet our guest, Lydia Lee. Lydia, the Work Reinvention Coach and Solopreneur Strategist at Screw The Cubicle. Since 2013, Lydia Lee has helped hundreds of people transition out of the golden corporate handcuffs, develop successful self-employment strategies, and reinvent how they want to work so that they can live the lifestyle they want to have. Most importantly, she believes in intentionally creating purposeful work with our strengths, values, and personality in mind so that we are building a business we love and want to keep for years to come. Currently, she is based on the tropical island of Bali. Lydia spends her time coaching and speaking on life and work reinventions, solopreneurship, and lifestyle freedom. In today's episode, you're going to discover Lydia's motivating factor to leave corporate for entrepreneurism, ways her business grew organically instead of forcing it, how she knew the first business model she tried wasn't in alignment, why she eventually settled on the cozy business model she did, the evident power of a sabbatical, the importance of executing check-in points, and so much more. Before we jump in, though, I do just want to let you know that if you would like to work with me via my private coaching, if you would love coaching, support, and training on how to grow your business, how to manage your time, how to create more efficiency in your business, potentially make a new hire or replace somebody on your team, reduce the stress and overwhelm of running your business, or simply have a partner with you that can help you make strategic decisions that will help you level up your business, then I think we should talk about working together. To learn more and to discover what that might look like, you can schedule a call by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/coaching. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Lydia. How are you today?
I'm so good. You're my first morning call. I love
hope
it. It's 6 in the morning in Bali.
I hope I'm the first call. Like, what time is it? We were just chatting about that. So I'm in US Pacific. What time is it right now for you?
It is 6 in the morning in Bali the next day. I'm in the future.
Okay. This is good. Thank you for being here with me. That's quite the commitment. So everyone that's listening, she is here for us today. First call of the day. Well, I'm glad we could make our schedules work and you could be here. I wanted to just give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself. Like, what would we not know from your official bio that you would love for us to hear about today?
Well, my clients know this, but not every new person that comes into my business knows this. But I've been based in Bali for the last decade, but I have kind of different home bases every year. So I like the idea. I chase the sun, basically. I'm not a winter girl. So whenever I go back to Vancouver, which is my old stomping grounds, it's always summer. Summer's the only time I'm in Vancouver. So I'm there for about 3 months a year. I have another home base here. And then I do Europe in parts of the year. So I like the sort of aspect of having a different environment each time, that each season. I find I'm a seasons girl.
Yeah.
That really, sort of, I don't know, I need a change of pace and a change of scene, culinary change, climate change, not the bad kind. And, environment change kind of really helps me, I don't know, keeps me on my toes to kind of refresh and reset. So that's something that not everyone knows, that I do that much traveling every year. Yeah. But yeah, that's sort of part of my lifestyle choice.
I would chase the sun too if I could bring my houseplants with me.
I know. I've resorted to cactus. Cactus, they just last longer. The cacti family's great.
Yes. I've had to mix some regular houseplants and cacti in my mix so that I'm not watering all weekend long, because I just have this new obsession with houseplants. Okay. So I love that. So it sounds like you're a girl that loves to go after what she wants, and you're really tuned into what makes you happy, which I think is a great segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is, why you chose to build the business model you've chosen. And we're going to dive into what that looks like and how did you get here? Like, you didn't just, wake up one day with no experiences that said, hey, this is the business model for me. And let's just see where this goes. But I just want to let our listeners know that I was really excited to speak to Lydia about this, because I think it is not spoken about enough to say we are the ones that get to decide what our business looks like. We get to make some choices that in the moment might feel difficult, but I think in the long run will create more joy just in your personal life and business. So let's just dive in and see how you did this for yourself. Okay, my first question is, describe your business. So what is your business model? And then we can talk about why.
Yes. The name of my business is quite self-explanatory in the sense of Screw the Cubicle. I help, corporate escapees, mainly mid-career, to reinvent their work, repurpose their current existing skill sets and experiences to launch a solopreneurship business. So I call myself the Work Reinvention Coach and Solopreneur Strategist. And I am just a fan of tiny businesses. I think because of my decades worth of experience, and by the way, this didn't start this way. I built a much bigger business or growing that business a lot differently back in the day. But going through, I think, you have to find that alignment of what fits well with you. And trying new things is a good thing, to try on for size, like a coat. It's like, let me try that on for like a year and see what happens. And I think, as I've grown in my own business, it's helped me to realize that certain metrics of success are important to me. And then others are more about what was taught to me from like the coaching industry or the online business world of what we deem as successful. And I've had to kind of unlearn a lot of, kind of putting the horse blinders on and being like, what's my lane? What's the thing that I want to do to get there? And that's informed me a lot in making those shifts for myself, and also changing how I support, my clients in the last decade as well. But yeah, Screw the Cubicle was actually started 12 years ago as a blog, never meant to be monetized, was literally just a place to document my identity crisis going through from employee to entrepreneur. I come from my family's originally from Malaysia. We're immigrants, when I was quite young, to Canada. Quitting your 6-figure job and a partnership in, a company and deciding to do entrepreneurship, this came with a lot of shame and guilt that, the Asian, don't call them tiger moms for no reason. There's a lot of like, what the hell are you doing with your life? And are you having a midlife crisis too early? This was sort of where I was sending my mother, sending my friends and family who were questioning my life choices when I quit my job, to just go read about my journey there. And then, so slowly, readership started happening. People started asking for support. And that's sort of how it planted the seed for, I guess, 10 years later now, I've had Screw the Cubicle.
So with that, having to navigate personal relationships and all of the beliefs there and unraveling that, well, what was your motivation? So when you were writing, what came out as your primary motivation to leave corporate and go work for yourself?
Well, my sort of transition journey started with a bit of a painful experience. I wish I could say it was this beautiful moment where I woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm meant for bigger things and I should do more with my life.
And everything was
didn't have that.
crystal clear, right? Yeah.
The stars aligned, the universe was just manifesting for me. No. None of that was going on. Again, coming back to that sort of history of my bloodline, of that Asian immigrant mentality of like work hard and sweat, blood, and tears to get somewhere, because that was sort of what we had to do to survive, in the beginning of time. And so I was working 70 hours a week, not taking my holiday. Like I used to sort of just bank my holiday, get paid out at the end of the year, kind of do the thing that I thought was responsible. And lots of years went by, and I actually suffered a health scare on a business trip in Russia in winter in 2011, 2012, where I developed temporary agoraphobia and was trapped in my hotel room for 3 days from having a complete nervous breakdown.
Wow.
And that was the sort of awakening. Not going to ever wish that on anyone to experience health scares and things like that. But it was something I needed to kind of have a pattern interrupt in my life to sort of go, oh my God, what have I been doing to lead up to this sort of state? Yeah. And so I had to take time off and, sort of a sabbatical from work to get back into health again. Luckily, I saw a therapist that didn't shove a bunch of pills down my throat, but instead asked me, really important questions, about my choices, what was happening in my day to day. And I realized a lot about my approach to my corporate career was sort of like throw the kitchen sink at everything and work my ass off in order to sort of honor, what my family has given me, an opportunity to belong in this country and do big things with my life. But I was sort of doing it really blindly, perhaps to please my family, please the people around me, rather than going, hey, this is actually the kind of work I really want to do, And so that realization helped me to understand and investigate on what are those value systems? What do I really want to, what are the ingredients of meaningful work? And what are the things that I want to experience in my job that gives back to me as well and lets me live the life that I want to live? And it wasn't, it's sort of like breaking up with someone, your job is kind of like a relationship, and you start to see like, okay, this was good for a while. It no longer is, because I'm also evolving as a human and I have different needs now as a, older adult than what I wanted in my early 20s back in the day, So when I first started, in the transition journey was actually convincing my old bosses to become consulting clients, to negotiate a part-time consultancy where I could be in charge of certain things, not the entire shebang of my full-time gig.
Right. And some
that
of your
was actually my
favorite
first stint.
things. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, I could actually do more for you if you let me focus on one or two things versus 25 things that people try to make you do when you're a full-time employee, right? So it took a little bit of convincing and negotiation, but they became actually my first client. So therefore, I started my first agency in the international education industry. And, that was my first business. And then Screw the Cubicle became the blog to document my journey doing those negotiations, healing my body, my spirit, and my emotional world after leaving corporate. The confusion that can happen sometimes, because back in the day, I quit my job during a time there was a bit of an economic crisis in Vancouver as well. People were losing their jobs, getting laid off, getting fired. And here I was quitting a six-figure job with healthcare. And, I just bought my first house, like all those things that you're supposed to be this responsible human and just keep the train going.
Yeah.
And I did the opposite. So when I was telling my friends and family about this new plan of being a business owner, they were sort of like not that supportive. They were quite, I call the dream crushers in the beginning of my years, partly because they're projecting, their own fear as well of like, hello, everyone's uncertain and unstable and you're doing the wrong thing, because that's how they felt about it all. A lot of them lost their jobs. So I was sort of, looking for support perhaps in the wrong places as well at that time, so part of that was, again, maybe talking out to the ether. Part of my blog was like, I need to say something, and it ain't these people.
Not
They're
these
going to be the
people,
best to talk to me. And so it became almost like a journal, a bit of a diary of like, what am I doing? How am I feeling about things? And being very sort of authentic about it, because I had nothing to sell. It was sort of more, here's a blog, maybe you're experiencing this as well. And then, it was, I remember the first time someone emailed me about coaching with me, which I didn't even know what a coach was. I had to Google this to go, what does a coach do? It was a lawyer from Toronto that was 10 years older than me, but said that after she read my story, she was like, I'm kind of you, but 10 years later in mid-career. So I would love to know if you can help me make that transition as you've done in consultancy. And I was like, I guess I could, so it planted the seed on getting my first guinea pig client, my first case story. And then from there, I started building, Screw the Cubicle to where it is today.
How organic. I love this. So as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, you could have literally laid that over a lot of business owners that are now didn't do that process, didn't do that healing, didn't ask those questions. So they ran from corporate saying, I hate the hours, I hate the workload, I hate all the responsibility, and then blink their eyes and think with freedom and being their own boss that all is going to magically fix itself, but without disrupting, to your point, the habits, the behaviors, asking these questions. It can even get worse as a business owner when there are no guardrails. Everything starts and stops with you. And so now you're really burning yourself out. And so I love that you shared it took, first of all, asking the right questions and listening to say, what is it that I want? Giving yourself permission to ask, what do I want? So many of us, I believe, just do what we think we should be doing. You said that several times in your story, right? And that's what other people think. All right. So you asked the questions. Your business grew organically with the first email. It said, will you coach me? And you said that you would also start an agency and did consulting. So, at what point did you say, okay, I knew why I wanted to leave corporate, but how are you designing a business that supports what finds joy for you and what you define as success?
Yeah. So, in the first year of business, I was just putting my head down, trying to figure out all the things I had to do to be a business owner. I didn't have a lot of mentorship around me. I didn't have a lot of community around me. So it was a lot of Googling and kind of being in Facebook groups and things like that and trying certain things and failing at a lot of things.
Yeah.
So sort of like baby business, angst in the first year. And then in the second year, I started to question a lot about, okay, I've gotten the business thing sort of down packed in the sense of I've got great clients that I work with every month. I've got a recurring income. I'm feeling a bit safer in my, ability to be a business owner. And then what I was also contemplating at the time was, well, what about my personal life? What about the things that I really enjoy, like travel, and experiencing new culture and not kind of waiting for that 2-week holiday, at the end of the year to take, right? But it's something that's a part of my life. Is this possible? I didn't know anyone doing that. And will my clients fire me if I didn't have an office space somewhere? Luckily for me, the agency and consultancy business I was building was already working with international clients abroad. So I had clients in China, I had clients in Europe, I had clients in Southeast Asia. And a lot of them were, kind of used to Skyping me at the time. They would call a co-working space that I had membership in. And, the receptionist would pretend to be my receptionist and be like, Lydia, Screw the Cubicle, right? Or not Screw the Cubicle, the other business at the time, right?
Yeah.
And it felt like I had a, sort of like professional office. So I was paying rent there. And I thought, do I need to be doing that as well? Can I run this business while I take trips, while I live a lifestyle that could be in my own design? And that was when I decided to take a 6-month mini experiment to come to Southeast Asia and find sort of different places where I could meet other sort of location independent entrepreneurs and build a new community and sort of, see if that will work for me. Or maybe I hate it and I can just fly back and nothing will change and it's fine,
I love that you use the word experiment. I just want to highlight that. That feels it's a really fun. I feel like it's a more fun way of going about it, and you're not attached to the outcome. So you truly get to see, does this work for me? Not, I'm making this huge life decision and like moving across the world. Yeah,
totally. And that actually, I've never been a big risk taker, even though on the surface, people are like, oh, of course you took a bunch of risks. But to me, there were very calculated risks and things that I had to do in order to convince my mind to allow me to do it. And part of that was saying, it's only temporary. It's only in the next 30 days. It's only for the next 3 months. We can always make a shift. Like, I think sometimes when we think about making decisions or choices in our lives, it can feel very permanent. Like you've got one chance to get it right. You have one chance to do this thing perfectly. And as a perfectionist and a type A personality type that I'm still unlearning till today, how to do things differently, I needed to give myself this sort of bracket of time where there was a start time and an end time to this decision. And I can reevaluate if I needed to. I can make a different choice. And that allowed my sort of mind to go, okay, I'll let you do that so that I can feel like you have a plan, that if something went south, you would save us, So I had to almost negotiate with myself to allow myself to have this sort of, experiment by giving it that time window of, a date that I could pull out if I needed to, and then when 6 months arrived, I was like, oh, I'm enjoying myself. It was a little hard the first couple months to find friends and get used to things. But after I kind of got my rhythm going, and that's why I love sort of slow travel. You can't really bounce around like a tourist. You sort of want to stay somewhere for at least 2 months or so in a place to really get a sense of the environment and the culture. I started to really love it. I built my community. So I started extending, keeping, kind of going, okay, another 6 months. Yeah. And then that turns into, this September will be a decade that I've been out here, so, and traveling, of course, as well. But, it's so interesting how like one seed that's to be planted through an experiment can absolutely change the course of your life.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's about the level of questions that you're asking yourself, right? Because when I think about my own business, it's the whole time you're talking, there's a couple of examples that come up. And one was when I left corporate and started my business, and you were talking about having something that's disruptive, and mine was having my son. And so I left corporate. I thought I was going to, climb the corporate ladder. I never saw anything else for myself. I was happy to work the hours I was working on salary at the time. And then I had my son, and it was like a light switch. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, like the mom I want to be is not in alignment with this other, my career. And so like yourself, I took my vacation, all my maternity, and right about 2 weeks before I was supposed to go back, I told them I wasn't going back. And they asked me to stay on as a consultant. Now, I didn't have a plan. Yeah. So I, at the time, through all my maternity, my husband and I were crunching numbers. We're figuring out, like, can I stay at home? And so I said I would stay home for 2 years and reevaluate. I just wanted to stay home until my son could be in preschool and not daycare. That was just, what we came up with. When I went in to quit, they asked if I'd stay on as a consultant. And that was the seed. Because then I said, well, hold on, I came in here to quit. Let me go talk to my husband and figure this out. And I did. I did consulting, and then I got a taste of what my own hours and only the things I love doing and only the things I'm really good at. Like, where was this my whole life?
Right. Where have you been?
Exactly. And then consulting turned into, like yourself, coaching. So lots of similarities, but it did take a major life event to disrupt what I call normalizing. I have a whole episode on what we normalize in our businesses, but even in our lives, you stop asking the questions like, what could it be? What would this look like? And if you don't ask those questions, you're not going to get different answers.
So true.
And then the second time, as you're speaking about how this has majorly impact my business, was in 2021, I got COVID pretty seriously. I was in the hospital for quite a while and then out of the business for 2 months. And it all happened as suddenly as you get COVID. And I have a whole episode, so anyone listening, you can go back and hear this story. But it took my business not just surviving, but thriving with me out of the business, that I was like, oh my gosh, this shattered all my fake beliefs, right? We operate on what our business should look like or what's going to happen. And we make assumptions and unchallenged. That's how you start filtering and making decisions about your business. So when my business did well, I was like, well, what if I could take it off on purpose and not be sick during the 2 months off, right? And so to your point, that was also personally a very life-changing event, just being that sick. And so I had already prioritized time off and, balance. But at that point, I was like, oh no, like my business is going to look way different after this. In the last 2 years, well, I take a lot of time off, but I had to solve some things in the business. And so I want to talk to you about that too, is like, now once you decide that the metric of personal time off or time out, we'll just call it any time outside of the business, is important to you. How can you still hit your other metrics like revenue, live the lifestyle you want to live, do the things you love in your business? Those things absolutely need to be still looked at and solved. But it all starts by asking the question of, how do I make this work? Because this is important to me.
Absolutely. And, part of me giving myself a new lifestyle choice was a bit of that motivating factor of like, if I can experience it slightly, just like you did, of like, oh, wow, this is what it feels like to XYZ. All of a sudden, there's like a real taste for it. There's a real experience for it. And I love that, because then I think my motivation level increases because there's a real goal. There's a real intention to make that money for a specific reason. Like every dollar has a purpose. You're not just blindly growing, doubling revenue every year just because that sounds great on paper. There's like all that money, time, choices, intentional, like insights of what I do differently or not do differently every year equates to a particular experience or result that I want to experience. That's so much more than just a revenue point of a metric, right? So when I started traveling, what I really realized is that I'm so much happier and inspired to do even better work when I have time to go to yoga, work out, see someone for lunch without rushing back to work when I don't need to, right? And planning my days accordingly so that I can combine pleasure and work on a weekday. I didn't have to wait till a weekend to do that, like I didn't have to, it's like what corporates we used to do in corporates, like wait Friday afternoon, we're like, where's the ticking clock? Let's go, and then this like huge depression that happens on Sunday night at about 7 p.m. going, oh God, we start again. I didn't want that kind of feeling in my business. And you're right. Like you can absolutely be working so much more, in your business as the boss. And I certainly did. So I actually had my second burnout after my Russia fiasco in corporate. I had a second burnout in my business in 2015 during my highest revenue year. Of my business, where I should have been celebrating and, whatever. But if anything, I was like, holy crap, I'm feeling ill again. The body, as they say, right, the body keeps the score. Sometimes your mind, as a type A perfectionist, I'm like, go. I just was wired to keep hustling. That's in my DNA almost, But then your physical body is harder to trick. It sort of will push you down. And I was like, we're here again. Didn't you learn your lesson the first time in Russia? But I didn't. Sometimes the lessons need different. To reoccur. It looked different. Exactly. Because I was working in my underpants, without needing to go into, the office. I was living my life. I was doing trips. It felt like the right thing, but there's like, it still followed me. A lot of those limiting beliefs about what I had to do to be successful, but because I looked and compared myself to a lot of the sort of, famous influencers in the coaching industry and going, okay, this is the trajectory of how it needs to look like. You need to have 5 offers a year. You have to have this many full-time staff members, And so I was building this huge team, managing people, doing a bunch of meetings. I hate meetings, and launching every 2 months. And you've been through the launch roles.
I stopped launching several years ago too, but for the same thing.
Me too. I no longer launch anymore. I mean, but it took, again, a painful thing because I had this burnout. I had to take off. So similar, our little stories.
Yes.
I too have to take off 2 months off my business, maybe 3. Luckily, I wasn't getting COVID, but I certainly had I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. I had trouble breathing. I had anxiety, panic attacks every few days. This was not okay, And so and then I just had to keep paying everyone to be because I felt bad, okay, keep going, keep doing something in my business. But I needed to leave my business to reset again. And I think this is sort of where the power of sabbaticals taken effect. I had my sabbatical when I had my corporate burnout. I took another one. And these days I take a intentional sabbatical every year, no matter what. Not for burnout, just to reset, reinvigorate, and reflect, because sometimes you're going fast towards a direction, but you're not quite sure if that's still the direction you want to go. And we need to have little buffer points to kind of check in, right?
Yeah.
To kind of go, is this where I still want to go?
Yeah.
Make those pivots and adjustments,
I think that's a great part of the routine too. And for me, summers are always slower. But see, again, if you just look at what other people are doing, the resets at the beginning of the year, reset, relook at your goals, replan.
Exactly.
And for me, that's not, I feel like I'm in the middle of my groove in the winter time when it's dark and I just rather, not be outside doing all the fun stuff. So again, and we're different people, but just finding what your own rhythm is and when are you going to reflect is more important than doing when other people, are saying that's when you should do it.
Totally. Like right now I'm doing like a mid-year intermission. It's like, okay, just like things are going good, but still let's take a little pause. Summers are also quite slower for me in months of work, but it is a nice time to do it. And because I'm traveling back home to Vancouver quite soon and things like that as well, it gives me a nice thing to do over the plane. When I love working on the plane, such a nice quiet time. But I'm a huge believer in seasons and rhythm because everybody's life seasons are different and energy levels are different. Like I work with a lot of introverts, for example, that they can't, in me as well, not even being an introvert, I can't work the same way 365 days a year. There's certain times of the year my energy is high, my creativity is high, and other days I want to snuggle in and, clean, kind of clean up and spring clean, rather than do a lot of external activities. So I think, understanding that vibe of how you like to work is so important. And that second burnout actually taught me a lot of that because I realized I really hate managing people, love working with people, don't love having a full-time team. And so I wanted to help me to make those choices.
Sorry to cut you off. I wanted to ask you about that. So you go from a full-time team to what you call a solopreneur. And so I want you to define that. Is solopreneur like you have no help or it's just not full-time help? Like, can you tell the listeners what solopreneur means for you or how you're experiencing that? Because there's a little bit varied definitions out there, right?
And there should be, everybody who is a solopreneur should have their own version of what that is, And for me, I do best when I work in sort of project-based things with contractors and a team. So I still have a team in the sense of that there are people I call upon to do some of the things where I'm not good at. Not my genius zone activities, not my high level leadership activities. And it's things that still need to go and operate in my business, but it doesn't have to be me to do them. And before I used to hire a lot of sort of, I'll hire a full-time or a part-time person to work permanently in the business. Could be mid-range manager to sort of junior level social media people, right? And what I really found was that I still had to train a lot. I had to manage a lot. And then half the time I was kind of saying to myself, I could have done that better.
Right.
So what I decided was, I don't want to say that. I want to be able to say, you can so do that better than me. If anything, I want you to tell me what to do. So I budgeted and really looked at my investment to a team every year to hire senior level, highly experienced specialists. Not a generalist, not a general VA or general this or that. Everybody is specific to the role they play. So if there's an editor for a video, all they do are videos and they don't do anything else. If someone's dealing with my operations in terms of systems and SOPs, that's their specialty. They don't do anything else. And I really find that I get so much more value for what I spend because I literally can be hands off. They fix everything so quickly for me. Yes, I pay top dollar for it, but ultimately I save time. And time is money. And I save the stress to not, feel like I can't trust that person to do it better than me. So that's sort of my way of building a team is curating smart, intelligent, awesome people that do things way better than me, specialists instead of generalists, and paying them the top dollar when certain projects are activated, but it's not a full-time thing every year.
I am so glad I asked you that question because I do think that some people might be hearing, so I have a team and I go to nobody. Like, I don't want to be doing everything or I don't have the skill set or the ability. And so I had to feeling that that's not what you meant when you said solopreneur. And I'm really happy to hear that you still are hyper aware of like, what's your zone of genius? How are you best using your time? Because come on, let's be realistic. Like, it's not fun to have to do everything in your business. And if we're doing this whole business and life by design, it's definitely not going to be to, avoid working with people just to say I do everything myself. Like, that's not the goal at all. Okay, so you've shared with us what that team looks like. So you scaled back. And I think the other question that people might be thinking is, okay, great. So you have time. You don't have this large team, but like, how does the money work? And I'm not saying you have to share your specifics, but I think it's worth us talking about. And I'm leading you. You and I have never met, but I think you're going to have something to say about this. There's a huge difference between top line revenue and profit. And you can have, I'm going to go on my own little soapbox here. I have clients that have multi-million-dollar revenue lines, and they're making the same, maybe sometimes unfortunately less than some of my other clients that quote unquote have smaller businesses because their revenue line is smaller. And I always just like to keep reminding, my clients and listeners that if you're running a small business, you're doing what you love. To me, the next metric you should be looking at is your take-home pay. Like, yes, there's more than one way to get there.
So true. Thank you for talking about this, by the way, because I think there is this myth out there, a misconception, because I think with these successful business podcasts, people talk about 7-figure this, 8-figure this, and it all sounds really fancy, but it's never revealed like, okay, what did you have to do to get there? And what are the sort of ways of a model that, how many hours do you work? How much money do you take home? Like what's if you don't want to go into the numbers, what's the percentage anyway of what is your total revenue that goes towards your Facebook ads or to whatever? Like I remember talking to, a friend of mine who started like this amazing multi-million-dollar e-commerce business, but then later on revealed to me, she's like, I've just become a Facebook ad agency. I no longer do the crafts and the things I loved about it. And I hate it now because I'm now a Facebook machine and 80% of my revenue goes literally to Facebook. And then I have to pay my employees. So by the time she takes home that pay, she basically makes less than I do and has triple the stress of managing such high numbers for ad spend, And I was like, oh God, that sounds like a nightmare, And so being more transparent, I think is so important, so I'm so thankful you asked this question and people can sort of decide for themselves, what's the kind of model they want to build. If they want to work 70 hours a week, go for it, but know that's what you're doing. Right. What you want to go after. Don't do it blindly, Yeah. And so, for me, one of the things I had to adjust, remember I talked about the launch roller coaster. I was like, get me off this train. I don't want to be on this thing. This sucks. Okay. And so I had to kind of reverse engineer that. What would it feel like not to launch? How would that change the formats of my offer? Do I continue offering 5 to 6 things a year? Did that bring me joy? Or is there something else that I can experiment with again, to see if that would be my best work. So one of the things that I was thinking about then was in my personal life, I am a minimalist. I am someone that loves to, yes, I like beautiful, nice things, but everything's very intentional in how I furnish my house, friends that I pick, what I wear. I don't have a lot of stuff in my life. Yet in my business, I was a maximalist.
Oh my gosh, I love
was sort
this.
of that weird paradox of identity, because in business, for some reason, I took on this. Well, I shouldn't say I took on the role. I was that person for so long. Again, that story, that origin story from my own family that sort of goes, this is how it works to be successful. So I sort of continued to live that story of like, if I wasn't offering everything to everyone and being available all the time and being on all year round, I'm going to be forgotten. I'll be not needed, not worth it. And so this was a bit of a trauma response, in my opinion. I also came from a broken family. I was abandoned by my parents at a young age. So this was also a weird, I do think a lot of things of what we do in business can be a reflection of traumatic experiences, and that is in a way why I love business. It's sort of therapeutic experience as well to see what the hell's happening in other areas of your life. And so I was giving a lot to my business, doing more and more things, but not enjoying myself, not getting anything back from it all.
Yeah.
You know? So what I decided was, what if I only had one thing? What if there's just one way to work with me? And maybe I creatively offer it in several creative formats, but it's the same thread of work. It's the body of work that is my best work, instead of these a la carte courses or DIY things or, you know, random things that I had to relaunch all the time. What if there's a master framework that gave people my best work? I could do the things that I do best, which is creating, you know, I love intimacy. You know, I'm always someone that loves small groups, one-to-one conversations, not big arena full of people. You know, I'm the one that says the Irish goodbye at a big dinner party. I'm not an introvert, but I certainly get very sensitive to energy and, you know, like sort of too many people in a room. I needed to kind of replicate my personal life choices to my business choices, which is, what if it's not huge amounts of students? It's actually small, little intimate groups that I'm with every, you know, year, and I know everything about them and they're with me long term, you know, and it's not always one-on-one because I obviously can run out of time being one-on-one, but how can I create that sort of personalization I do my one-on-one with a group format or a mentorship community, right? That allows people to go through that framework, you know, and it's open every day in a sense of that it's evergreen. I don't have to do launches. I might do enrollment events or invitation events to kind of like have an open house to the program or to my work, but it's not this like launch thing where everybody gets 50 emails and, you know, gets, you know, really effed off at me because all of a sudden I, you know, didn't speak to them for 6 months and then all of a sudden I'm back because I'm launching something that felt so disingenuous, you know? So I wanted to change that rhythm of how I showed my work or launched my work in a way that felt more sustainable, holistic, and it's only one thing. So that was how 90 Day Launch was born, was that, you know, first it was cohort, then it changed into evergreen. And then now I offer it there's only two ways. You do it as a student with the group mentorship, or you can do it as a student plus me as your sidekick, your side launch partner to launch that business with you for the next 6 months. That's it. Everyone goes through the same framework. And when I do a mini workshop here and there, it's all pulled from the same framework. It's not another random, you know, stage of the business or anything like that. And that's allowed me to just like actually hone in on that
laser
journey,
focus.
Like that boundary of work. It's like, okay, I don't do anything else but this. I deal with this stage of the problem. And yeah, things might evolve, you know, down the road. But I think having a core offer, having something that you master and is what you're known for, and then having creative ways to offer that same framework in one or two other ways, that feels cozy to me. You know, like a tiny business to me feels cozy. What is that way that I just want to gather people in my living room, have a blanket over us and sort of just do work together instead of this like huge arena stadium to fill of people that I don't really even know their names. You know, that never felt boutique and intimate to me, which is, I think, how I want my model to feel like.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many like ahas here and like, what, so you ask good questions, you keep asking yourself, what it is you want? You're experimenting. You were looking at how you naturally show up in your personal life and then realizing that you built this business that isn't in alignment. And I just want to highlight that because I think that there's going to be many people listening that are going to be like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Right? I just never thought to ask myself, how do I show up in one arena of my life versus the other? And that might be where the disconnect is. So I just thank you for sharing all of that. And I just wanted to just, you know, tie up the conversation about, you know, top line revenue and, you know, owner's profit and things, is that to me, my opinion is there's more than one way to give yourself a raise. So one is obviously increase revenue, decrease expenses. You got more profitability in your business. But the other way, which is where I'm in my business, it's not that my revenue is not going up, but I started saying, well, if I work less hours and still make the same amount of money or more, I'm giving myself a raise. Like how much money I'm making an hour is something that brings me like that 100% supports my family, my goals, but also like you, like it's always the next goal, right? And so if the next goal isn't tied to just revenue where it doesn't have an immediate benefit on myself, my family, then how else can I measure that? And for me, it's reducing the hours while making the same money or more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I got to tell you, like, I really haven't heard a lot of people again talking about that. And it took a while for me to get to that point. Again, you have to, let go of the, I don't want to say like nearing the conversations where everyone's talking about revenue, or you have to work with this many clients or this type of clients, like you were saying, and just asking yourself, like, what actually will make an impact on your day to day.
And I think even getting to know the numbers, like I was always back in the day, how I got myself into amounts of debt was having such shame around money, back in the day. I was the girl that would like log into my checking account to pay the credit cards and like put a hand over the total because I didn't want to face what I've done.
Right.
And being a business owner really supported me in helping me. Like I needed to get good with the numbers. And one of the things I needed to really get clear on is what is enough? That was a question, and it's still a question I ask myself every year because the enough number can change based on priorities. If I had family, things like that will change over time. But knowing an enough number, knowing what it's all for, that every dollar had a purpose, that made a difference for me, so that when I did hit that goal, I don't have to go, oh, next year I need to double it. I don't know, because you just say that because it sounds sexy. No, I could keep it as is. And as you say, maybe adjust how I work and systems I have to put in place to work less for that same money. And that would also still be a level up.
Right. Yeah.
I have clients that like what their enough is, enoughness of quality of life, time, money, right? It's like 75 grand a year. And they have their little log cabin by the lake. They write 3 books a year and work about 20 hours a week. And they will do that forever because their lifestyle choices with that amount of money and the time that they can, have with their life, that equates to the algorithm for them to feel happy and successful. That number, I think we need to stop saying things like, like 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure is the only way that we're measuring ourselves to, where it's like, no, what is the number for you? Yeah. So for me, I travel a lot and I'm quite good at not, I don't have a car. I don't do all the things that I would have done in the city, where my lifestyle costs are a little bit higher. Actually, by traveling, I save about 50% of my money than if I was to live in Vancouver, right? So if I was to make different choices, I'm not saying everyone needs to do this, but these are one of the choices I've made to keep more of my money.
Yeah.
To not live in Vancouver's so expensive, like everything would have gone towards a mortgage and rent. And I've decided I don't care about mortgages. I care about experiences. I want to plan for my retirement and I want to travel now instead of at 65. So what does that cost? What does that look like every year for me? And if I work I use the Profit First book a lot. I love the Profit First stuff that I had to learn. It really changed everything for my business to really understand that when I'm making a bigger income goal, there's a reason for that. There's a reason of how I save and have different buckets of money for different things in my life rather than one checking account for everything. I pay myself appropriately every month and the business gets a percentage of a profit every month. And then at the end of the year, if I wanted to give myself a bonus, I could take that bonus or reinvest it into the business or hire the coach, and I'm never, that really helped me to watch my numbers, understand that every dollar has a purpose and I don't grow for growth's sake. I grow for a real reason of something really I value in my life.
Yes. So we're going to come to an end of this conversation, but I got to interject this. First of all, if you're new here at Productivity Straight Talk, we are huge fans and lovers of Profit First. Did not know Lydia was. We have several episodes. We will link to them of me talking about my own experience and how I want to say life-changing, but it was business-changing, life-changing. It was to look at it differently through the lens of what they teach inside Profit First. So it's a book by a gentleman named Mike Michalowicz. And really it's a framework of looking at your finances in your business a bit differently than what would be traditional and putting a priority on paying yourself and having profitability. So we'll link out to all those resources. So we're not just here teasing you on the excitement Lydia and I have about Profit First. But I think that is, again, an important conversation to continue. Well, we're talking about the experience of putting profit first. And this book will tell you how to do that and give you the how to setting that up. Okay, so we really navigated through your journey, and thank you so much for sharing your story, your experiences, and really just learning that you have decided on a tiny business, a cozy business. I love that, a cozy business that aligns with what your goals are, way outside of your not just your business, but your life goals. And that what I heard, and you can correct me, is that your business serves you, not you serving the business. It's a phrase I use frequently, and you are such a great example of that, is that your business is a tool that you use to live the life you love.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, not just a tool in a bad way. You love your clients, you love your work.
Yes.
But I think
that was a huge part of, I think, of the ingredients, isn't it? It's that the work needs to feel good. And then how you're performing in the work or the job, right, for your business also needs to lend a hand in giving you the quality of life. Like both have to go hand in hand, for sure.
Yeah. If I think about, when you were talking about enough is enough, man, if I think back to the woman I was, let's see, my son's 13. So almost, 13 years ago. Wow. If I think back to who I was and what I thought was even possible, is like my minimum, like I couldn't even think about what was possible as my minimum normal today, right? So in 13 years, when you think about what's enough is enough, I had to start asking myself that question, because I make more money than my mind could have even wrapped my head around when I left corporate, right? My lifestyle, that I'm also in my slippers right now, that my commute was the 3 minutes it took to come downstairs. Like, I have to pinch myself sometimes, but remember that it was always me saying, what brings you joy? What do you like? And essentially building a business around the thing that I would do every day, all day, which is coach. It sounds like you have a love for the work you do. I love what I do, but I didn't want the business to consume the rest of my life just because it was an aspect of my life that I loved.
So good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. So if our listeners want to hear more about you and how you help your clients, share with us a little bit about, you did share a little bit about your services, but who is your business for, so that you can call that out, and how do they connect with you?
So if you are a corporate professional in mid-career or close to mid-career, and you're thinking, okay, I've done all the legwork to get here, but I don't want to stay in this corporate trajectory, that maybe there is a different way I could utilize my years of experience to do something different, to, never throw the baby out of the bathwater. There's so much interesting things that can be reinvented in how you work and how you redeploy your skills. And if you've been interested to kind of think, hey, what else is out there for me that can be more independent, where I could build my own way of working with my lifestyle choices, I think a lot of the work that I do would be very, very resonating to you. So I work in the 90-Day Launch Academy program. You can do that one-on-one with me or as a student level. It's a lifetime access program as well, to honor people's rhythm and speeds and timing to how they launch a business. So there's no pressure cooker way to do it. It's a really holistic, organic, gentle way to launch a business that I think really focuses on the human behind the business, in terms of what you want to build from the get-go, not doing a bunch of stuff that makes you successful, but you'll have that burnout 2 years later, and really just being intentional about it from the beginning of time, so that you don't have to do what I did, right? Which is sort of have that burnout during the best years, but then really hate your business and want to break up with it. So we do a lot of stuff in there to ensure that people are starting the right business based on their genius zone, making the right model happen for the strengths and personality type that they have, and making it simple to run a business rather than complicating tactics or strategies out there.
Excellent. And how do they find out more about you? Where do they go?
ScrewTheCubicle.com is my home, right on the homepage. The great place to start is my YouTube channel. Actually, lots of people binge my videos. So right at the end of the homepage, you'll see a link for my YouTube channel. There's a bunch of playlists on career transitions, meaningful business building, solopreneurship strategies. Start there. And I think you'll get to know me a lot in those videos. And if you've been kind of contemplating on, what business should I start based on my personality type, I have a quiz for that. So you can find that quiz right at the top of the banner, on my homepage. And it'll send you a nice result of what business type you should start, plus some trainings and email information of how to lead with that superpower into your business.
I love that. Thank you so much for being a great guest and again, sharing your story with us. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. I sure hope you found my conversation with Lydia to be inspiring and encouraging, that we really can build our businesses however best suits us, to highlight our strengths, the things that bring us joy. There are so many ways to build our businesses, and it doesn't need to be like somebody else's. It doesn't need to be like your friends. It doesn't need to be like a competitor in your industry. It truly can be the way in which you desire. You just have to start asking questions. You just have to start asking yourself, what could this look like? If it looked like X, Y, and Z, what would have to happen to make that true? Questions can be incredibly powerful, and I want to encourage you to take action by asking questions. What is it that you want? What is it that you want to experience by running your business? What is your version of success? What brings you joy? These are hugely powerful questions that if you sit and listen to those answers without judging it, and then move into, okay, well, how can we make that possible? What would need to change, or what decisions need to be made to make that possible? I think that that is a journey well worth traveling. If you would like help growing your business, or perhaps looking at your business from a different perspective of what would it be like if I wasn't working in it all the time? What if I wanted to create a leaner team? What if I wanted to grow my team? All of those are decisions that could come up when you're asking yourself those questions. And those, in fact, are the questions we ask inside coaching. If you would like to learn more and find out what coaching with me would look like, you can head on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/coaching. On that page, I have several case studies of clients who have shared their stories in great detail of what business was like before working with me, what was it like working with me, and what does that look like for them now. These stories were shared so that you could get a really good idea of what that transformation and that experience could look like. So head on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching to check those out. If you are new here, welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you are not new, welcome back and thank you. I would ask that you share this episode or any of your favorite episodes of Productivity Straight Talk with a friend, a fellow business owner, someone that you think would find value from the episode. Do not keep Productivity Straight Talk a secret. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.